With that install now completed, it only takes a second or two. We can see that our Nano server here is now a member of the domain. In effect, over here on the console itself, I can now log on with my domain credentials to prove indeed that yes, I can log on as a member of this Active Directory domain. There's still not much you can accomplish here in the recovery console. In order to, for example, implement roles and features here on this Nano server, we still have to retreat back to the PowerShell to accomplish those tasks remotely. Let me minimize things here and come back to my copy of Windows PowerShell. And this time, let's go ahead and enter in that remote PS session. But this time, you'll also notice that I can punch in the computer name as the server name and not just the IP address. I also don't need to have a separate credential because I'm using my Active Directory credentials here to log on instead of the credentials I added in manually. So now I'm here on this remote machine, Nano Server 1. And our next task here is to actually go about adding in whatever code is necessary so this machine can actually accomplish its mission, being a DNS server or an IIS server or what have you. But it's here where we see some examples of how PowerShell is just a bit different here in Nano Server than is it over in the other installation options for Windows Server 2016. For example, the get Windows feature command actually doesn't exist, and even if I spell it correctly, doesn't actually exist here on this installation option. You can't do any manipulation here with the noun part of get Windows feature. The same thing holds true with install Windows feature. If you try to run that command, you also get an error message here. Rather, we have some special commands that we need to work with here that are specific to Nano Server that will allow us to download the Nano Server packages from their remote location and get them installed here to allow this machine to become, for example, a DNS server or an IIS server or so on. I have a couple of things I want to show you here. One is sort of a prerequisite command that installs the NuGet package provider. You should recall this being a similar command to what we entered in back in that last module to create that connection to the NuGet package provider. Here, if I punch this in here, the package provider is named NuGet. We have a minimum version we're looking for. And if I hit force here, that will install that as one of the package providers we can work with. We also have need, while we're accomplishing that, because this is working remotely, we do have need to save a module here so that we can make use of it here on this machine. I will also run the save module command here against the modules that exist there in program files here on this machine. This will save those as the Nano Server package and allow me to then install Nano Server package as a module, or excuse me, a package provider here on this computer. It's this use of the Nano Server package provider that is what allows me to connect up to all the different modules that Microsoft is working on that I could then install here onto this machine. The command I'm looking for here is install package provider with that Nano Server package being the provider itself, which will add that to my list of providers here on this computer. I then also need to import in that package provider as well. So import package provider to allow me to continue to have access. Right now, this package provider is now available for me to figure out exactly what Nano Server-oriented packages are available in this connection that we've made here so far. Let's actually take a look at that. So find Nano Server package is the command I want to show you. This will give me a list of all the different Nano Server packages that I could potentially install onto this computer from that package provider that I've just made the connection towards. Here you can see I have the DNS package, the SCVMM package, my IIS package, for example, my shielded VM package, my host and compute package. This very small list identifies just a couple of items that can be installed here onto this machine to turn this Nano server into something that's useful for actual work. Let's actually go through a couple of examples then of the installation of different kinds of roles onto this machine so we can see how, once we have it installed, we may go about later managing it. Let's take a look then at, for example, an easy package like this DNS package right here. Let's go through the installation of this Nano Server package right here on our machine by running the command install Nano Server package with the name being Microsoft Nano Server DNS package. This will then reach out to identify all those packages that are available to grab the one we're looking for and install all the necessary code here onto this local machine. Notice how we're actually grabbing that information from a remote server out there on the internet. Once then installed here on this machine, our next step is to enable the optional feature that's associated with DNS. To accomplish that, we do so with another commandlet here, enable Windows optional feature. We do so online for the DNS server full role feature, so essentially turning on DNS services on this computer. And if we've done everything correctly here, once we've enabled DNS services on this computer, we should be able to launch our regular DNS Manager console and connect it up to this machine to go through the continued and further configuration of DNS services on this specific Nano server itself. Let me bring up then a copy of the DNS console right here, and let's repoint that DNS console over to the computer we're working with. Right here, not 3.112, in fact, actually this is 3.112, the Nano server we're working with. Because we have this now attached here to 3.112, you can see that we can go through creating new forward lookup zones or reverse lookup zones, adding in the usual A records, and so on and so forth. So we now have this set up, this whole configuration set up to allow the further configuration of this DNS server right here from within our comfortable DNS Manager console here. DNS services is obviously only one of the different ways in which we can turn this Nano server into something useful for our data center. Another such way has to do with installing it as an IIS server. Let's go through also making this Nano server an IIS server in addition to a DNS server. The command here in order to do that is, in fact, before I do that, let's just go back to find Nano server package so I can show you which of the packages I want to install. That package we're looking for here is the IIS package, like what you can see right here. And in fact, the command that I want to do in order to accomplish that is the install Nano server package here for Microsoft Nano Server IIS package. This will go through installing that IIS package similar to what we did with the earlier DNS package. And you'll see once again, we're reaching out over the internet to access that package content there. Once we have this installed, we can then make use of the package content, all the information that's part of that package, to go about now creating the website that we want to create here on this machine. Let's say, for example, that once this package completes, that we want to create a new website on this computer and bind it to port 80 so that we can then access this website from some other browser elsewhere in our environment. These steps to actually accomplish this are more or less the same as what you would do if you're trying to manage really any IIS server that is a later version that can be addressed there with Windows PowerShell. Let's start the process here by importing in the module. So import in module IIS star. So we have all the IIS modules and commandlets available to us. And let's create a new directory here called site1, where we'll store really the content and more or less the pointer here for the site that we're creating. The command we're looking for here, let me copy and paste this command, is a commandlet called new IIS site, which will create a site called site1 and bind it to port 80 here, and associate it here with the physical path that we created, so c:/site1. This will allow us to then actually address this website, address this IIS website, even though there really is no actual content here. We'll see the IIS, sort of the splash screen for IIS here in just a second once we attempt to verify it there from our browser on our Windows 10 desktop. Let us now, if I clear the screen, get IIS site, so site1, just to confirm indeed we do have that site. Notice here that the site actually is stopped at present. Now, normally we would need to start IIS site for site1, but one of the issues here is that in order to be able to start the website, we actually have to start the services that allow IIS to actually function. Those two services we require are start service, are going to be the WAS and W3SVC service. Once we start those services here, we can then go back and actually start the website here. And if I've done everything correctly, I should be able to then go to 192.168.3.112. And indeed, we do see the IIS splash screen here for web services that are currently running on our Nano server. So this should give you at least some more familiarity with a couple of the different roles that you could install on this machine that turn an otherwise empty Nano server into a workload you can use there in your data center.